This is Election 2026. South Australia decides. Live from Nine's election headquarters in Adelaide.
Good evening and welcome back to Nine's election headquarters. Great to have your company. We have breaking results for you now and, of course, the best team to take you through them.
We certainly do, led by Nine's political editor Charles Croucher. We also have former Labor Treasurer Stephen Mulligan and, of course, Liberal MP Michelle Lensing.
And, of course, David Spears running tonight as an independent in the seat of Black. And our own Gus McDonald joining us, our state political reporter. Great to have you all here. We're thrilled you could be here. And some of the seats are starting to come through.
Finally getting some results come through. Originally there were some technical problems going through with the EXA website. That seems to be slowly ironed out. So as the night goes on, we're going to see some results and we'll start filling up this bar at the bottom of the screen. When that gets to, we know, the magic number, then we have a result. 24 is what we're looking for. We'll see how that goes quickly.
Well, let's have a look at Chafee first in the Riverland. Usually a very safe Liberal seat. What are you seeing there?
You would think so. SA Best ran second here in 2018, so we'll keep an eye on what the One Nation vote is, and that's why we keep an eye on what the One Nation vote is. 2.4% of the vote counted. This is early. This is going to happen like this throughout the night. But 24% swing. It's one of the rare One Nation seats where we had a result last time, up at 33.7%. Now, in that scenario, usually the fact that Oscar Harding and the Labor vote would flow through to Liberal Party on preferences would probably be enough. But any time a Liberal is losing 15.2% of their vote, that is disastrous across the country. Now, this is one of those seats where you'd think One Nation would do well. They would be delighted to take a third of the vote so far.
This is an interesting seat as well. I remember when Jenny Troth was announced as a candidate when One Nation declared their campaign. And I don't even think she thought she was a serious chance. I had a conversation with her at the time. So to see that swing towards One Nation early is huge.
All right, let's take a look at the seat of Lee. Of course, now Stephen Mulligan. This is your seat that you're retiring from. Is a bit of FOMO tonight about this?
This is the most important seat of the whole night, of course. And in these early results, great to see David Wilkins for Labor polling quite well, albeit off a very small proportion. But no surprise that One Nation has got a strong showing there at 21.2% so far. But I think this should be a pretty safe
That's fine.
retain.
Early count, one, Labor is gaining votes. If you've got a majority already and you're gaining votes, it's going to be a good night. Two, the Liberal Party is running fourth, behind One Nation, behind the Greens. That tells you the cannibalisation of the Liberal Party vote by One Nation. That's a surprise, that one.
All right, let's take a look at Adelaide, of course, in the CBD. Usually a very safe seat there. What are we seeing in the early numbers?
Former bellwether Adelaide. It used to be where goes Adelaide, so goes the country. What you're seeing, so goes the state. What you're seeing there is votes going both ways, both down from Labor, down from Liberal, and it is the Trent Baxter, the One Nation Party former candidate who's been stricken from the party but not from the ballot, who's picked up 12.3% of the vote. Again, if Labor's holding their vote, it's okay. Anytime the Liberal Party is losing votes, it's going to be bad if you have to try and pick up votes to win. That's the overriding question. The fact that One Nation can still garner 12% of the vote is surprising given what happened, but I guess that's early voting, which wouldn't be counted. This is on the day vote, so that's the surprise.
Considering the seat demographic of this seat as well, Adelaide, to see One Nation up 12.3%, that just shows how much of a protest vote is coming through this One Nation ballot. Trent Baxter at 12.3% in a seat like Adelaide that has always voted with the majors, can stray to the Greens, but nowhere as far right as One Nation. Just shows this could be a huge force tonight if we're seeing these results in seats like Adelaide.
Let's Michelle. Okay.
Well, I think it's also going to throw, potentially throw the cat among the pigeons too, because, where One Nation's preferences go, I mean, admittedly, this is probably a small percentage, but the One Nation votes could be just a complete wild card in a seat like Adelaide, which Rachel Sanderson held for 12 years. Against, Labor candidate after Labor candidate until the last election. Gillian's run a really strong local campaign, and I think if you compare that to the results in Lee, Melindy Fardone, who was our candidate, only polled 7%, but she didn't have a lot of time to campaign either. So I think what we will see with some of the results and the candidates who do really well, the ones who've had time to get to know the electorate and vice versa.
But whose fault is that, Michelle? That, these people who were put up as a candidate way too late. Why was that the case?
Well, look, I think let's admit we haven't held the seat of Lee since the landslide of 1993. I'm perhaps the only person who's old enough to remember the State Bank disaster. We held that seat for one term. We've never held it since, or probably got that close. My preference for candidates is always to have them out in the field as early as possible, and Julian just proves that worked.
This is, seat of Flinders, of course, which is a hotly contested seat because strong independent numbers, and we're seeing that with Megan there as well, Charlie.
1.5% of the vote counted. It is a small count, but that is great news for the Liberal Party and the first sign of hope. Sam Telfer, who was a former mayor, well known in the region, he has gained votes on last time. We know there's an independent history here. That's why you see a swing with Megan Petherick there. That's going off what Liz Haberman managed to do last time when she had quite a strong showing. Regardless, that is the best sign for the Liberal Party we've seen so far tonight.
I think that could be a very small rural booth, though. There's lots of far-flung booths there with 40, 50, 100 votes. Could be very unrepresentative.
We'd still be going booth to booth, though. So that 7% swing is from that booth last time. That's a good sign for them.
And the other thing I think, just on a seat like Flinders, where it's very small number, is it's likely to be strongly rural, which you would think One Nation would be doing much better. Yeah,
we had good signs for Liberal before. These are the bad signs for Liberal. Bragg, the last stand for the Liberal Party in the city. Jack Batty has lost 11.9% of the vote. Again, a small count, 1.2%. But if you're looking at that kind of number, it's the 10% that's been eaten up by Russell James Patterson's for One Nation, has almost gone at vote for vote. That is cannibalising the vote on the right. It's not coming from Labor.
And Charles, this surely means that the result, if the numbers are to be correct and they continue like this seat will go down to preferences. It has to.
Let's take a look now at Narunga. That's definitely an interesting seat for us tonight with Fraser Ellis. What are you saying there?
Well, we'll see. Fraser Ellis is not on the screen. And I say that is a good thing for democracy, given what's gone on in that seat. I mean, there's legal dramas everywhere. For the first time, we're seeing One Nation lead a count, though. And that's the surprise about it. Again, Labor is preferencing the Liberal Party, I think, in this seat. Correct. Again, this is a seat where the Liberal Party will have to rely on Labor, but rely on others as well. It may be that 11% that vote for Fraser Ellis end up deciding who wins that seat. That is the most promising sign for One Nation that we've seen. Chantal Thomas leads in the count.
All right, we're going to have a chat with Josh Teague, Deputy Leader live in Hyson tonight. Josh, good evening to you. Welcome to the our coverage of the state election 2026. How's it faring for you at the moment?
Thanks very much for having me. Well, my feeling at the moment is one of gratitude to our community, all of the electors that have come out today and on all of the early voting days over the last week. I'm very thankful for all of those who have helped in what's been a strong local campaign, and it's over to everybody now. I want to pay tribute to our leader, Ashton Hearn, who has made very clear that we are here to offer an alternative, a more affordable South Australia, better health and stronger communities. And we've been out every day prosecuting our case. And now it's over to everyone, and we're awaiting the results. I'm right here at Stirling, surrounded by supporters and volunteers who've been all over the district today.
Josh, Gus McDonald here. You had faced a tough contest this entire campaign. Who was your number one villain? Was it the Greens or was it Labor?
That broke up a bit, Gus. The contest here has well and truly been fought very hard by my opponents. We've been focused on what we're bringing. And as the local member now for the last 8 years, I'm wanting to hand it over to the community to decide who it will carry on after today. And I'm very proud of the campaign that we've run in Hyson.
All right, Josh, set to be a very tight contest there tonight, I am sure. Wishing you luck. And we might take a look now at some numbers coming in from West Torrens, which is, of course, the one and only Tom Coutson-Tonas's seat.
Yeah, he won it with a big margin last time around, well over 50%. I think he's gaining some of those numbers now, 56.6%, 3.3% more than last time. As we've said, and we'll keep saying, anytime you see that little number to the left of the box for Labor going up, it's a good night. They don't need to go up. They just need to hold to win government. That's a good sign. One Nation has got themselves into second on 17.1%. Greens in third. And we're at second seat now we've seen where the Libs are running fourth.
We touched base with Vincent Tarzia earlier in the seat of Hartley. Let's see how that's tracking for now.
Yeah, this is one of those marginal seats that the Liberal Party need to hold for the sake of the party in future elections. What we are seeing is a huge vote swing against Vincent Tarzia. He has lost 24.5%. That is half his vote, and that would be enough to see him lose his seat. If it's replicated, we're still at 1.8% of the count. Not there yet. Bad signs, though.
Michelle, I have to ask you, how do you feel seeing these numbers? Like, yes, it is early on in the night, but 24.5% down, a former Liberal leader.
Yeah, that's not looking very promising for Vincent.
And the rest. And that's a bad sign.
Well, potentially, but, you know, let's wait till we see some more results.
I have had some information that the One Nation vote, it has a very high informal rate, as we had previously discussed. A huge number of people voting just one, which will then go through the vote saver provision. That's a result out of Houghton, which is in Ashton's electorate.
Okay, interesting stuff. Probably too early to raise this with One Nation, but we kind of touched on it before. 2018, we had the X Factor with, of course, Nick Xenophon and SA Best. Do you get the vibe that this One Nation is going the same way? There's a lot of interest, a lot of talk about it in the lead up to the election, but then, of course, it didn't fare so well in the polls on that day. We're going to see the same with One Nation, or is there a standout feature here?
Well, I think Xenophon failed to really influence that election in any dramatic way. I'm not sure you could say he cost any party a seat that they wouldn't otherwise have won or lost anyway, whereas One Nation are a more decisive factor in shifting seats tonight, I believe.
I think that's right, and if you look at those early results, for example, from my former electorate in Lee, One Nation above 20%, and Nick Xenophon, his candidate, I think garnered about 12%.
Okay.
So their vote is holding up far better, and despite the criticisms that both the Premier and the Liberal opposition leader have put about One Nation's policies, they haven't had the sort of last-minute catastrophe like Nick Xenophon had.
Let's run some more numbers now. We'll take a look at Elizabeth, of course, in the northern suburbs. Early days still, but what are we starting to see there?
Yeah, a retiring Labor MP there. That is a surprise.
Wow.
One Nation is running first in Elizabeth. Labor has never lost this seat.
Wow.
One Nation currently with a 30% jump to Kim Hanton. He is leading. Ella Shaw is second on 32. The benefit that Ella Shaw has is that a lot of that Green vote will flow to her, so it's not quite panic stations yet. It's also very early in the count. But that shows it's not just Liberal seats. These are outer regional seats, probably a seat where you'd expect One Nation to do well, and they are.
This just shows that we are seeing Labor lose vote in these traditional seats, traditional red seats to One Nation. We've spoken a lot in this campaign about how the Liberals would lose seats to One Nation. This is now showing the blue-collar workers who usually vote for Labor are turning towards the minor party.
Thanks, Gus. Yeah.
I think the caution, though, of course, as we've been saying, is with these very small booths coming in, these small results, they can be wildly different. My first booth that came in when I was first elected showed a 30% swing against me. Fortunately, that didn't carry through for the rest of the electorate. So,
well, Hurdlebar was looking pretty good.
Nat Cook won her first election by 9 votes back in 2014. She's a bit safer now, a minister in the government, has lost 8.7%. That's because of that big jump in the One Nation vote. Again, with Green, that would be fine. Here's another seat where the Liberal Party are running fourth. That's a trend that is now picking up across several seats, not seats Liberals would have been thinking they'd compete in, but to see the Liberal Party down to 10% of the vote, just 1 in 10 people putting them number one so far.
Extraordinary.
It is.
Well, let's take a look at Mawson. This will be interesting. There's been a lot of talk about the One Nation impact there. If we take a look at the numbers.
Yeah, Pauline Hanson has been there a bit the last few days. Obviously a seat affected by algae. Tyler Green has 1 in 4 votes going to him for One Nation. The Labor vote has been hit heavily there. That's a 1.3% count. The Libs would take that any night when they're getting 5.6%. Is this an algae vote?
I was just going to say, KI, of course, was heavily impacted by the algal bloom, David, wasn't it?
This could be a KI booth. Mike Holden is from Kangaroo Island, located on the island, would be well known, is a good candidate in my assessment. I suspect to come in this early, that's a small KI booth.
This is from Parawa and Panishaw booths.
Okay, so Panisha's on the island and Parawa is on the southern Fleurieu, very small.
Okay.
Now, Carvel, of course, this is an interesting seat because we have Dan Cregan retiring from this. So it's now down to David Leach, Bradley, Christian as well in the One Nation party. How's that looking?
Yeah, up in the hinterland, Matt Schultz is an independent that is running well and has managed to get himself into first place. He is the footy coach, president of Mount Barker Football Club, has been pretty well known there. Flinders University guy, the Liberals are picking up votes, another bad day for Labor. One Nation sitting on 21.9% of the vote there. So they're into third and they're competitive. 1 in 5 people voting for Christian Locke.
But that is fascinating. I mean, we've got 4 results all in the low 20s, which shows how difficult it is.
Speaking of One Nation,
Yeah, well, I'll just stop you there, Stephen, because we do have Pauline Hanson now joining us live from One Nation HQ. Pauline, we're seeing some promising results. It is only early numbers at the moment, but what's the vibe there where you are now?
People are just so excited here in the room. They've thrilled with the results. Like, there's only 1% of the vote count so far. I haven't had a real chance to have a look at the numbers coming through, but by the reaction here from the people, when it comes up on the screen, they're all so happy and excited about it. But anyway, we'll keep our fingers crossed and see how it eventuates through the night. I think I'm going to be absolutely over the moon excited if we can get Corey up and Carlos Pombero to win the second seat in the upper house.
Pauline, it's Charles Croucher. There are people hugging behind you with this small vote tally already. What's a win look like for you tonight? Is it as simple as just getting representation in the upper house, or do you really want some lower house seats as well?
Look, I think we'll all be very happy if we can win some upper house seats. And Charles, we're going to just see what happens with the lower house. It's been a campaign. We only got about 4.5% of the vote last time with one upper house member. I think with Corey Bernardi, if he wins his seat, you're going to see a different One Nation on the floor of Parliament to really push back, call for accountability. I don't think Malinauskas has had real opposition in the state for a long time, push back on government policies, and I think Corey will be the right person for that. And also Carlos Pombero, he's going to be an excellent representative for the people of South Australia.
So Pauline Hanson, Brenton speaking here. What do you put your success down to here in South Australia?
It's not my success, but I'd say me. I think it's the major political parties. They've been ones that have come undone. They have not listened to the people. They have actually put out policies, disregarded the people, haven't listened to them. And people want change. They're fed up with the major political parties. And many people come up to me and say, you're our last hope. People don't feel like they're in Australia anymore. The country's changed so much. Our educational system, the hospital system, the ramping, the getting health services provided to them. I was up at Cooper PD the other day, and you know, they're just so lost. They don't see the members of Parliament. They don't hear from anyone. So I think this is about, you know, a voice for the people of South Australia. Getting good government is to get good opposition, and that's what I want to give to the people.
Pauline, Gus McDonald here. Is there a particular lower house electorate that you feel you are likely to snag tonight?
Look, no, I won't say. I did travel to Mount Gambier and Maitland, all around those. I think they're very strong candidates, good candidates in those electorates. And then I think, I'm just trying to think where I went today, Mawson. I think where the Labor Party member is retiring there, and Tyler Green, he is their candidate there. I think that might be a seat to actually watch that one, see how we go there. Strong support in that seat.
We did see some early results in that seat there that was looking promising, Pauline. We've heard in the vibe on the polling booth, there's been a lot of shirts on the ground, a lot of people there handing out how to vote cards. You've had a real groundswell of support. How has that process been, generating that support here? And obviously you sense there was a move, an appetite for that.
There is, I was at that polling McLaurin Vale, went up there, and that's where that seat is, and a lot of support in the area there. What I found is a lot of the young ones, and that's been quite amazing. voting. Went out to the Great Eastern Hotel last night to have dinner with a few of us there, and a lot of the young ones that I'm talking about from 18 to 25, 30 that actually came up to speak to me, they're disgruntled as well. They don't know what the future holds for them, and I'm talking about tradies. So what I'm feeling now is a lot of the younger generation want change.
Pauline, the reason that cheer might be going up, on the early primary count and total count, I can tell you have 24% of the vote so far. What is the message to the rest of the country with that result?
You know, I want to take this opportunity to give a big thank you to the people of South Australia for putting their trust and confidence into voting for One Nation. And this will send a clear message to the rest of the country. I'm not going to stop with South Australia. I'm going to go after the seat of Farah and get David Farley elected, and then we're going to concentrate on Victoria, because Victoria is a basket case destroyed by the Labor Party with no opposition from the Liberals. This country needs change, and the people are screaming out for change. It's all about good policies that is going to give them a decent standard of living, way of life, and put in place for future generations, pay down our debt and give them great services that they need. I think that's what patriotism, it's about being Australian, being proud of it, and that's what I stand for, and I'll keep fighting for that and giving back that voice to people, as I tell them all the time. You have a right to have a voice, you have a right to have an opinion. That's all they want. I want to empower the people so they know that they can actually move forward and have trust and confidence in their country and their representatives.
Pauline, are you speaking tonight?
Later on, I should be saying a few words, but that'll be later on. So I'll speak to the people here, and I don't turn my back on my supporters, and I just want to, I think it's very important not to forget the people that are here. This is all possible. It's not because of One Nation. It's possible because the people themselves wanted that change, and that I have so much respect and admiration for my fellow Australians. I've just been the vehicle, but they're the engine that will drive it.
Go and enjoy the night, Pauline. Can we speak to you later again? Can we check back in with you and see how things are going?
Yes, I think you can.
We've got you in.
I just want to take this opportunity to say, Corey Bernardi came on board, and I asked him if he would stand for One Nation. He's done an excellent job. You know, he's a trooper, he's a professional, he's adamant about he wants to do a good job for the state. And I respect Corey immensely, and I'm so proud to have had Corey stand for leader of the party here in South Australia. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline, for your time. We'll let you go on and enjoy more of the night and speak to you again soon. Thank you.
Great stuff. And looked like Corey was enjoying himself there too. I'm sure we'll hear from him a little bit later on.
Yeah,
by my count, One Nation are leading in 2 seats and are currently sitting second in about 9. Now, it's early. These are some of the early results coming through, but they're competitive across the board.
What's your... Oh, yes, we'll come back to that. Sherbet, I know we've got the results in for Sherbet now coming through, starting to come through there.
Of course, Ashton Hearn's seat.
Yeah, really
Interesting
important.
to see what's happening.
There's no sophomore surge for Ashton Hearn in their second go-round. She is losing ground, and she's lost 13.8% of the vote. That is gone straight to Bruce Priest, and he's got some from elsewhere as well. Labor's vote is up. I can tell you the biggest booth counted so far is Birdwood, and One Nation won that booth in Ashton Hearn's electorate.
Okay.
I have a result from the seat of Black, which
tell us.
would suggest that I won't win that seat, but that's fine. It's good to go down live on air. Alex Dighton, the Labour candidate, is polling very well. Just the Seaview Downs booth, 295 first preference votes. The Greens candidate, One Nation, myself and the Liberals are all quite close together and just under 100 votes each.
I've got some numbers out of Black as well. The Seacliff booth that has Labor up 4%, you at 23%, the Greens are down 8%, One Nation is polling up 11%.
Well, these numbers come from scrutineers that are doing the counting on the ground. That's why we don't have them in our screen yet, but they will eventually flow through to the system via the Electoral Commission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just particularly on that booth.
The booth that I got was a bit of an unrepresentative booth out on the edge of the electorate. What you got is one that I've worked for a lot longer.
Okay.
We'll see if we can get the actual seats, the numbers up here for you shortly. Just firstly, though, can I go to you, Michelle? I mean, it is early, but how concerning is this?
Well, look, you know, again, I think I would urge caution on all these things because we just... There's so many of these seats. I mean, one of the ones that we were looking at before, which is, basically, for Carvel, you've got 4 different candidates with 20% each. So we're just not going to know until we do a proper preference flow. The Electoral Commission, just for people's info too, in terms of the way that they count two-party preferred, is they decide before the day who will be the 2 lead candidates. That often doesn't turn out to be the way it is. So, there might have to be a whole range of recounts. And then, of course, we've got, postal votes in all of this, which do tend to favour us, but which will probably also favour One Nation as well.
Hammond is another seat I'm getting some scrutineer numbers out of, and it's not good news for the Liberal Party. Down 10% in a certain booth. One Nation up 16%, and the Independent, they're down 11%. ALP up 7%. So
we'll get those figures actually come through shortly with Hammond, actually, so that'll be good. We're going to go ahead and look at Giles, I think, because we've got some early figures for Giles.
The Prime Minister went there yesterday, which is never a good sign during a campaign if the Prime Minister shows up in your electorate, and that's why.
Wow.
Barry Drage is leading the count in Giles. Eddie Hughes has lost 20%. I mean, he has 20% to lose, but only 20%. This is one of these safer seats. Obviously, Whyalla, Steelworks, there's so much going on. SA Best ran second there in 2018. If that plays out, just 1.6%, but they're the first signs that there is not going one-way traffic. Well, the one way it's going is to One Nation, and it's costing both sides.
Gus, what do you think, saying this?
Yeah, this is crazy. You think about the amount of time that both the state and federal government have spent in this seat over the last year, and Eddie's gone down 20.2%. It's crazy to think. Stephen, you hovered over the books that went into a lot of this money that went into Whyalla. How does this make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, again, you'd have to say it's a small booth or a small number of small booths and it's an early vote, but that 38% to One Nation is a remarkable result. We would certainly hope that Eddie picks up some primary in some further booths from here. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty close count.
Barry Drage won the Port Augusta Central booth.
There's a deep vein of anger, I think, in the community, and I think we see in Labor seats that's a lot of blue-collar workers, and in our seats it's traditional Liberals who there's a lot of farmers who are terrified about what federal Labor's agenda is with guns and a whole range of things, and a lot of people in regional South Australia who just feel like they miss out.
Well, I think the other thing we should also recognise is the context that the election's being held in. I mean, people have been confronted with a petrol price at the Bowser of $2.85 a litre for diesel, and when you're in a community like Port Augusta or in any other part of regional South Australia, that is a massive additional expense, and there'll be a lot of people thinking something's got to change, whether it's away from either of the major 2 parties, and so while this sort of result's not unexpected, the scale of it certainly is.
I want to come back to you on the diesel comment about that a little bit later on as former Transport Minister and former Treasurer. But Gus, you're talking about Hammond. Let's check out those numbers because you've got some more accurate numbers coming through there. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, so those Hammond numbers I was talking about said that it was bad news for the Liberals, and it looks like that's also being reflected on what's coming in to the Electoral Commission.
Yeah, 13% loss there for the Libs. The One Nation vote is up. Rob Roylance is on 26.5, roughly 1 in 4. That's sort of the trend across the entire state at the moment. Roughly 1 in 4 voters voting for One Nation. Labor is in 3rd. There's a lot of independent and Green. Again, any time you've got 3 candidates in the 20s, then it's going to be a long night, and that looks like it's going to be a long night. This was One Nation's strongest chance. This is the one they thought they were the best show in, and you can see why.
And Hammond is dominated by the city of Murray Bridge, so we'll need to see consistent results coming in from there before we've got any idea what's going on.
12 candidates in total in that seat.
Yes, one of the most. Now, Liz Daniels has, of course, been breaking down the data for us, and she joins us now at the election mega wall. Liz, what have you got for us?
Just want to have a quick look at the statewide primary vote, because that is what's telling us this story of what we are seeing play out in these individual seats. One Nation's vote is surging, and it's being taken from both the major parties. The Liberal Party, a huge haircut tonight. 13.7% down on their primary on these early votes. Remembering, the Liberal Party has not seen a primary vote below 31% in the last 50 years in South Australia. Tonight, it is in the low 20s. So that is an absolute low for the party. A huge result so far for One Nation. Remembering these are obviously early booths that are coming in, so we'll keep prefacing it like that. But to say as well that there is this 6% issue for Labor as well. A little haircut there for Labor. Those votes are clearly going to One Nation. And where are they? Well, regional South Australia. This is if we just look at the regional South Australian vote. I've got wows on the panel. This is a huge result for One Nation because this is where they ploughed their time and money in. 31% leading the primary vote in regional South Australia. Those seats that we saw earlier, the ones that Charles is talking about, Giles, where the wireless steelworks are, Mawson even. Huge result for One Nation. A haircut for the Liberals, and then again Labor is losing votes as well in the bush. Now, if we have a look at how it's translating in Adelaide, remembering we thought at the start of the night there may only be one final stand for the Liberal Party in metropolitan Adelaide, one seat left. Well, this would indicate that there may be no seats left. The Liberal Party has not had a primary vote below 31%. In Adelaide, metropolitan Adelaide, it is in the teens. It is not even in the 20s tonight. So that's the early results that we are seeing. So we're really seeing that One Nation vote play out. We'll keep bringing you these. But again, we do want to hear from you because it is your election tonight. And I just want to have a quick look at the Hedgegrove Pet Retreat because as serious as this is, you know, we head to the polls this weekend, they say, we know there are some big decisions to be made, but this is my favourite campaigner of the evening. Vote One, the goodest boy. Less talks, more walks. An excellent political slogan, I say. Defund the fat cats, vote One dogs. So a little bit of fun tonight. You might see yourself on the election mega wall, but not very fun for the Liberal Party this evening. Michelle, that must hurt.
Yeah, well, we've been a little bit buffered because it's not unexpected. So, you know, we've really been keen to try and save the furniture, so to speak, because we recognise we've had a really difficult 4 years. I developed a saying that just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a really rough 4 years.
Just 1 in every 6 vote going to the Liberal Party in Adelaide itself. 23 seats have delivered counts so far. The One Nation leads in 3 and is second in 12. They're in the top 2 in 15 of the 23. It's happening.
So staggering results for One Nation so far. We're going to take a break. Back shortly with the SA election here in 2026 here on 9.
Welcome back. You are watching 2026 election. SA decides, and we are in for a very interesting night based on some of these early numbers that are coming through. Now, David, you did want to have a look at the seat of Black. Yep. I can tell you we do have those numbers to go to now. What were you hearing from your people on the ground?
Look, I'm hearing Labor polling very strong, and I did think that it would be too high for anyone to be able to overcome that One Nation or myself, and that's certainly the figures I'm seeing.
Alex Dighton is picking up votes, 6.6%. He won it at the by-election. David, you won this in primaries in 2018. You won it in primaries in 2022. Now at 11.6%. What's it tell you about either the region or what's happening there?
Well, look, I think One Nation has stripped away quite a bit of the vote. I know some of these booths are not where I would have performed strongly. I think I'll pick up a bit from there, but I'll certainly fall short this evening. And I think from my point of view, this was a good thing for me to do. It was a good thing for me to put ideas into the community and have that conversation with the community, but I'll clearly fall short this evening.
Get the ride in the rocket later on.
Yeah, well, you'll be happy to jump into our rocket.
If you pick up, that would push the Liberal Party to potentially 5th in that seat. I mean, that's remarkable.
And I did think that would be the case. I thought they would come 4th or 5th when I was out on the booths, the pre-polling booth. They will come 5th.
Well, that booth that Gus gave us earlier from Black, I think is in addition to these figures on the screen. And that shows that the Liberal vote is basically picked up and transferred to you in that booth. It hasn't been on these numbers. But I think 3 booths all saying that Alex Dighton's around 44%. And, you know, David, you're between 11, maybe up to 20 on that other booth. Yeah. I think that is.
No, I think
we can rule a line on.
No, I think that is the case. But look, was always going to be a long shot, and I'm happy I did it.
It's fascinating, though, that algal bloom hasn't seemingly played a part yet.
No, I'd like to see some of the coastal ones. We've got the Sea Cliff Booth, which was better for me.
Yeah.
We'll go through the Merino and the Southern Hillock Cove one. I think part of the reason the algal bloom might not have played a part was it didn't get the blowtorch from the opposition, not just myself, but the opposition in the way that I expected it to over an extended period of time.
I'd like to talk more about the algal bloom, because you being former Environment Minister, you had a lot of thought, and you were kind of missing in action at that point of time. But we'll come back to that. We want to take a look at the seat of McKillop, which of course Nick McBride is sitting in and been a topic of conversation here tonight.
This is one that should have the algal bloom impact. That is a huge vote for One Nation. Wow.
Yeah, isn't that phenomenal?
Jason Vargo has 48.2%. It's only 0.6% of the vote counted, so this is not a big count. This is one of the smaller ones we've had. Nick McBride is sitting in second on 24.1, but the prospect of One Nation winning a seat on primaries is remarkable. Beck Rosser is running in third there, and the rest are also Wrens. That is a remarkable result, noting we've got less than 1% of the vote counted.
We actually have Nick McBride, who is able to join us now live. Good evening, Nick. Our numbers here have you running second behind One Nation. How are you feeling?
Oh, look, I think this campaign over the last week has really shown a couple of front runners. We've obviously seen people come through and take tickets for either myself, One Nation, Liberal and Labor. Very, very direct, very, very obvious. And I have to be honest, One Nation led that race, just as an observation through pre-poll. So the votes coming through early right now don't surprise me. I would be surprised if we stay down as low as this, e.g. 25 and Liberals down as where they are. So it's very early. It was, as I say, quite obvious around the polling booths and pre-poll that One Nation were getting votes that were like very, very obvious, strong. In other words, voters were coming through and just saying, give me that orange paper, that's all I want.
Nick, Gus McDonald here. 1 month ago, did you foresee this? Were One Nation going to be one of your top three contenders that you're going to be fighting against in this seat?
No, not at all. If you'd asked me, I thought, look, Nationals could have been up there. I knew the Liberals could have been strong contenders for this, but no, One Nation I would have thought would have been outsiders. A couple of things I would say that what's happened here. One is that the Bondi issue, national fed politics, has fed into this result for One Nation. People are really frustrated with politics, the major parties. Me as an independent, look, I'm not sure how to gauge that yet. Very, very early. I've obviously got my issues in the background that's causing maybe some heartache, but look, we're not sure of the depth of that. But I do really think that One Nation has obviously come to the fore around what's happened federally and around what's, I would say, is perhaps voters being disillusioned, particularly in the regions and particularly in McKillop with the major parties.
So, Nick, this is a protest vote, you're saying, against politics, not against, say, the charges that you're facing?
Look, no, at this stage, that's exactly right. I think that if my charges were to come to the fore and they were the only problem here, these votes would have flowed straight back to Liberal in a hard way and maybe also back to the Labor Party. But we're not seeing that at all.
Yeah, it's staggering really, isn't it?
It sure is. David Spears, you have faced similar sort of scrutiny as anything you'd like to say here?
Well, look, it's a very difficult thing to go through, but you just have to keep on getting up every day and moving on. And part of running in this election was me doing that and doing that for myself, for the community, for family and friends in a way. And Nick's done that as well. You know, some people say, oh, do you put yourself out there? Do you keep on putting yourself out there? I actually think that's part of working through these things and keeping getting out of bed every morning. So I applaud Nick for his candidacy and just getting on with it. He needs to do it for himself as much as anyone else.
Okay, Nick, well, thank you very much for your time tonight. Still plenty to play out, of course, but we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you, Nick. Well, let's go to the seat.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Nick. And let's go to the seat of light now. I've got a few more stats coming in, Charles.
Yeah, Tony Piccolo is leaving this seat. The person who is succeeding him, or hoping to succeed him, has copped a hit there, 17.2% down. Again, a big One Nation vote, 30% of the vote, 5% counted. So a decent count here. The Liberals also losing part of their vote as well. This is a big hit to Labor.
Let's take a look at Mount Gambier, which is, of course, vacant with Troy Bell in prison. What are we seeing there?
Mount Gambier is one that looks like being a four-cornered contest at the start. The Independent is leading, and that is a remarkable result when the leading candidate is on just 20%. That down 23.8% you see on the screen, that is compared to the numbers that Troy Bell brought in. So considering that a like-for-like candidate, that's why you've got it. He was expected to do pretty well, the Independent, in that seat. It's a lot of counting going on.
He was a staffer for Troy Bell as well, so he actually knows that electorate really, really well. Anne-Marie Loaf, I know she's also worked this seat very, very hard, so interesting numbers coming in, showing the support that she's getting down south.
Liberal Party running fourth.
To the seat of Davenport here, of course, down in the southern suburbs.
Erin Thompson is the sitting member. Erin Thompson has gained 10% of the vote. She leads on primaries with over 50.3%. That is a sophomore surge, they call that. ALP finished second on primaries last time around. A great result for Labor. That's one you'd like to see.
And that's the seat that's adjacent my former seat, Erin Thompson. Well liked, a warm, engaging MP and deserved of a sophomore surge.
Because the picture wasn't on the screen, I missed the fact that the Liberal Party is running fourth there with just 10% of the vote. They got 41.2% last time around, 42.1 in 18 when they won the seat.
Big cut.
Yeah,
It's extraordinary.
Let's actually go live now to Corey Bernardi, who joins us from One Nation HQ. Corey, I imagine the vibes are pretty high there with some of these early results. What's the response been?
Oh, look, we've got some very happy volunteers and members and some very happy candidates, but you know, it's important not to get too carried away with some very early results, but there clearly seems to be a mood for change out there. People are looking at what I refer to as uni-party politics and saying it's not working for them anymore, and they want a viable and credible alternative. I'm delighted to be part of that alternative, and fingers crossed we'll be rewarded tonight.
Corey, Gus McDonald here. You've been coy with me all week. You wouldn't give me any indication on whether you'd win a lower house seat. The focus has been on the upper house. Have you let your guard down? Do you think now you can win a lower house seat tonight?
Gus, my guard is still up. I'm optimistic for my candidates. I'm optimistic for my candidates, and the early signs are very good. But, you know, we don't want to get carried away with anything. Preferences really matters. There's some issues we've been advised by the Electoral Commission about the vote count that might not be entirely accurate, with a high number of informal votes, which will be counted on Monday. So, you know, we're going about our business. I want to be happy for all the people that are here, because they deserve the success, and I'm just happy that it seems there's a good voice for South Australia about to be elected.
But you are celebrating tonight. It looks pretty joyous in there.
Mate, the team are celebrating. I'm remaining straight and narrow for a little while yet, but maybe later on I might allow myself to have a quiet drink and a chat with some of my mates.
No orange tie tonight, Corey?
Well, I do have one in the bag. It might come out later when we know a few more results. Look, you know, ultimately, I just don't want to get carried away with this. I know how hard you political pundits can be on predictions that don't pan out. But look, quite literally, I'm just celebrating democracy tonight. We've had a team of volunteers who have got out there. They've busted their butts to put in a good effort, and they deserve the success. And quite frankly, I think the people of South Australia deserve an alternative. That's really what I'm taking heart from. They have someone to vote for who's got their back, that will go in and take on the big fights, because I think they really need that, rather than just two sides of the same coin bickering around an election.
Corey, what do you make of your early, albeit early, results in rural seats where there were very strong independent candidates?
I haven't seen all the results, but you know, quite clearly there is a mood for change, and One Nation is part of that movement. In some places, the independents, I presume, are doing reasonably well as well. But when we've been out there, it's remarkable the reception that we've had. And whilst you know the Premier and others sought to malign us for getting to Cooper Pedy and to Mount Gambier and to Maitland and other places around the state, Port Lincoln. It's really important, because those people do feel forgotten. both in respect to services, both in respect to people paying attention to their concerns. And I'm delighted to be part of a group that wants to listen and will leave no voter behind.
But Corey, Gus again, you're not just taking votes out of those regional areas, you're also taking them off traditional Labor seats is what we're seeing up and around those northern suburbs. Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't. The reception we've had out in the northern suburbs on our regular tours down there have been fantastic, and this is what Scott had the Premier rattled over the last week or two. He's seeing the same data, or I presume through his research organisation, that we see on the ground, and that is people are unhappy. They want to send a very strong message, and they want an alternative, and they want a team that is going to put South Australia first, put Australia first, and make sure that the issues that have been papered over for too long are actually dealt with. And, you know, they might not like it, but the Uni Party have to accept the fact that people are looking for something different because what they've had on offer is failing them.
All right, Corey. Charles, anything you wanted to add?
Corey, you're currently sitting second on primaries behind Labor. Is there a message here for the rest of the country?
Oh, I think people will take many messages out of this. If we can finish second in the primaries at the end of this, well, my message is you can't ignore, you know, a large swathe of the population. You cannot put them into a basket of deplorables, which is what the Uni Party has consistently done for the last 20 years. They've had enough, they've had a gutsful, they're not going to put up with it anymore, and they have people who will go in and fight for their interests, they'll have their back, and that's One Nation. That's why I'm delighted to be a part of it. I hope we can build on whatever result we return here, and I want to see this spread across the country because we need to change the direction that the country's currently going.
All right, Corey, thank you very much for your time. We'll let you get back to the function there and we'll check in with you again soon.
Congratulations on the result.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there will be a lot of people, as you say, watching this very, very closely right around Australia at the moment. Let's move back through some numbers that we're getting coming through now. We'll go to the seat of Flory in Adelaide's inner northeast. Traditionally, Labor, safe, what are we seeing?
A safe Labor seat. An independent won this in 2018. That independent is running again, but is running fifth. This is another one of those seats, though, where Riley Size has picked up 17.9% of the vote. And again, the Liberal Party is running fourth, just down on 10%. And, you know, it was only 28.4% last time, but it's still, it's 1 in 4, 1 in 3 voters, not 1 in 10.
We had a very defensive strategy, I'd have to say. Flory certainly wasn't one that we were chasing. So, you know, particularly in the days now that we've got electoral funding and the pie is finite, we focus our resources on holding onto the furniture.
You're surprised, though, given One Nation has the same sized pie and yet can get 17.9, and presumably they're not targeting Flory either.
Look, there's clearly a One Nation surge, and a lot of that's come at the Liberal Party's expense. You know, we've had a really, really difficult 4 years and a whole range of issues. Yeah, I'm not surprised by specific seats where we're doing really badly.
It's certainly one they were hopeful, though, for. I was speaking to some One Nation backroomers who were saying that, you know, Flory was a chance for them up around those northern suburbs. It was something that they thought they could bleed some of the Labor votes, not so much in this case as we've seen the other seats.
Let's take a look at Chafee, of course, a safe Liberal seat there in the Riverland with Tim Whetstone. How's it looking there, Charles?
I'm not sure safe seats exist anymore, particularly tonight when he's almost down on primaries. Jenny Troth is up to 35%. Now we're at 6.3% of the vote counted. More of the votes coming in. The trend remains the same. Tim Whetstone plus Green plus Labor should be still enough to stay in the lead of that. But that's going to be close on a two-party once we get to the stage where there's enough votes we can look at two-party.
Yeah, I think if this is representative across the rest of the count for Tim Whetstone, he'd feel reasonably good about these numbers, even though his margin's coming down, that there should be enough preferences. Labor, of course, is preferencing Tim over Jenny, and then, of course, whatever the Greens do. So I think Tim would be breathing a bit of a sigh of relief, although, of course, he's not home yet.
Let's go now to the seat of Hartley in Adelaide's east. We will be watching this one very closely tonight. It is, of course, Vincent Tarsia's seat. Charles.
Vincent Tarsia has lost half his vote.
Wow.
1 in every 2 voters that voted for him last time are voting for someone else, and it's not One Nation to blame here. It's across the board. That vote is scattered. 3.8% for Labor, 5% for the Greens. Admittedly, 14% for One Nation. It's a big chunk, but it's a personal and a brand vote that's got hit there and been hit hard.
I don't think there's a road back here for Vincent Tarzia. I think these early results, it's only 6%, but that is now a number of booths, a swing towards Labor with Jen Roberts and a really substantial one away from Vincent, who won it on primaries last time.
Might be in the rocket tonight.
I would think
it might be the rocket.
Yeah, all right.
Start measuring up the suit.
Joining me. Can we go in together?
Yeah.
Save some fuel.
There's space for
Save
three.
some fuel.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Performer leader rocket. Performer leader rocket.
Might blow
Actually,
up.
Vincent Tarzia, we understand, is live with us at the moment. It'd be great to have a chat with him. Vincent, can you hear us there, buddy? Yes, you can.
G'day, Brenton. Yes, I can. Thank you.
So, probably not the way you're hoping to see it go tonight.
It's been a tough start. I just got a result in from one of the scrutineers in Tranmere. And the primary vote, something's happened here. I don't know what. The crowd has erupted. I don't know what's happened, but in the seat of, in the part of Tranmere, I've just seen that the Liberal and Labor primary is pretty similar. Also reporting that One Nation seems to be performing more than the Greens, but hard to say where that will ultimately go. But lots of early votes. I think something like over 10,000 votes were cast early, around 4,000 postals. So we'll see how that goes on. But lots to take out early on. Obviously, the One Nation surge is certainly something that we didn't expect. But either way, we respect the decision of the electorate, and we've got to learn and adapt and get better from that.
Vincent, do you feel like, though, you can talk about One Nation, but is this personal, and is this about that change of leadership, that revolving door of Liberal leaders and that disunity?
Oh, look, I've always been on the record as saying that a party should not change leaders the way that it did, but it played out the way that it did. From my own personal point of view, I obviously made a decision to step down for my community and also my family. And I think, to be honest with you, my result would have been much worse if I didn't do that. So, look, I've thrown everything at this. I'm very grateful for the career I've had thus far, and we'll see how the rest of these numbers play out. There's lots of pre-poll and also postals still to come in.
So, Vincent, Gus here, you're still hopeful there's a road back for you here?
We'll have to wait and see how these pre-polls and postal votes go. As I said, 10,000 early votes, about 4,000 in terms of postals. On the day, we have, in Hartley, we have come back in the past when you lose on the day, but come back and claw back. So we want to probably see a few more results come in.
I can see it on your face there, Vincent. This breaks your heart a bit, doesn't it?
Oh, look, I've always had a fight here in Hartley. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Ultimately, there's no entitlement here. In what we do, the election results that we get given, the report card can be quite brutal, but I'm very grateful for everything that we've been able to achieve, very grateful for the community for giving me 12 years, and we'll see what happens here, because ultimately it's about reflecting what the community want, and they've had their say. We'll respect that either way.
Vincent, it's David here. Look, you and I entered Parliament on the same day in 2014, and we worked through the good and the bad days together. I just want to wish you all the best no matter what happens tonight. Take care of yourself and your family.
Thank you, David. And as you know, we've fought campaigns, worked hard together, and as you know, there's two campaigns. There's the local campaign and also the macro campaign. I think we've certainly done what we can, and we've thrown the kitchen sink at this one, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, well said, guys.
Yeah, well said. And obviously not the night you were hoping for, Vincent, but we do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good on you, Vincent. Well done. Okay, so Ashton Hernseed of Sherbet, Charles. Let's take a look.
Yeah, this is important because you're going to need a leader in the parliament at some stage. And Ashton Hearn had a big margin, but she's losing votes as well, down to 38.9%. A big One Nation vote, up over 1 in 4 people voting there. I don't think this is a threat to Ashton Hearn just yet, but what it is saying is that the leader of the Liberal Party, a good leader of the Liberal Party, acknowledged across the board, is requiring Labor and even the Greens votes just to get over the line in her seat.
It's shocking stuff. Michelle, what do you think of those numbers?
Look, it'd be disappointing for Ashton not to have done better, but this is the situation we find ourselves in, that, the Liberal Party's got to do better. We've got to be united, not focus on a whole lot of issues that people don't care about, but as Ashton's been at pains to point out to people the whole way through, bread and butter issues. And I also think there's a level of the electorate kind of has an idea in their mind about who's going to be successful, and that's clearly the whole way through. Everyone's been saying Labor's going to win in a landslide, so it's that expectation management too. So if you suspect that Ashton's going to win comfortably, then you can lodge a protest vote. So I think there are a lot of messages to unpick from this, but I think she'll probably win without too much trouble.
There is still plenty more to play out. We do have to take an ad break, though. You're watching Election 2026. SA Decides. We'll be back with more soon.
Well, welcome back to Nine's election headquarters for SA Decides 2026, a major story playing out here tonight with the roaring success of One Nation.
It is a major story, but there is another story playing out. Charles?
There is, Alice, thank you. It is early, but it is done. At this time, Nine projects the election is won by Labor. The Malley machine rolls on. Now we find an opposition. Stephen, congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a strong 4 years, I think, for the government and also for the state. And it's really pleasing, I think, that there's been a bit of reward for that effort, particularly for Peter and his team.
But Mullers, you knew this was coming, didn't you?
Oh, well, look, you always get nervous in the lead up to an election. I was pessimistic about 2006, so I'm not always the best person to ask about these sorts of results, but it's great to see such a strong result, notwithstanding what we're seeing from One Nation, which, I think the scale of it is shocking all of us.
So is there mixed feelings here? Obviously you win the election, but you don't even know who your opposition is coming up in the next term.
Well, I think we've got a long way to go in the count. While One Nation might be ahead, particularly in some of those regional seats, it's I think going to be very difficult for them to hold on to where they are, particularly as the preferences start to flow through. Again, because Labor took the principal decision to preference One Nation last, and that'll help some of those Liberal candidates who are still somewhere close to a winning position in those regional seats.
It's funny, isn't it, that in some cases we may actually see Labor return Liberal members in some seats.
Well, I think one of the tactical mistakes that the Liberal campaign made was to try and court One Nation preferences by preferencing One Nation relatively high on a lot of how-to-vote tickets. And for some people, that would have been seen as a bit of an authorisation to go out and vote One Nation. And now we're seeing the results of it across the state.
We should explain to anyone who's watching and sees the ALP on 8. We know the magic number is 24. There simply isn't the inroads being made by Liberal Party or One Nation to take away from Labor's vote. That's why we're projecting the victory for Labor. We think they'll get well over 24. In fact, they've gone to 9 now. That'll keep going. The big question, though, and why this isn't over as a coverage, this is a really interesting night. It's about to play out because you need an opposition. And we have a dozen seats or so where the One Nation Party is currently running second. They have a higher primary vote than the Liberal Party. This is a seismic shift in the way every election has gone in Australia's history for the last 50 years is playing out tonight.
And we're going to talk lots and lots tonight about One Nation. But as a former opposition leader, I want to pay tribute and congratulate the Labor Party. They've just formed a government again, and that should be the big news. Very early in the night, they've been a strong, disciplined, creative team that have created a sense of excitement. I haven't agreed with them all the time, but a sense of excitement for the future of South Australia. They've won again, and the Premier and his team should be congratulated for that before we move on and start to talk about One Nation again. So congratulations to Labor.
Well done, David. Can I just put it out there? So for the former Marshall Liberal government, it was, of course, Marshall was the pandemic premier. I kind of feel like that was that set the scene, set the stage a bit for Labor's first win back in 2022, in the sense that South Australians started to take notice of our state, and other people in other states started taking notice of South Australia. Now, how good it was here. Enter Malinauskas, we'll call him Malinauskas, with everything going on there. And on the back of that sort of COVID time where we sort of looked back and saw the beauty of our state, Labor's come in, drawn on that, brought in the big events, changed the vibe within South Australia. Is that fair to say?
And I think Labor got very lucky with the timing of the last election, and the Liberals got very unlucky. But Peter Malinauskas came in, he presented something that appealed to the people of South Australia, his character, his agenda, his ability to communicate well, a lot about him, but a party that was disciplined and had a creative, exciting projection for the future of South Australia, and it worked.
I've just got to jump in on that. I think it's become a common understanding, I should say misunderstanding, that the only thing that undid the Marshall government was COVID. And if you look at the 2018 election result, where the Liberals won 53-47, we had a poll that was released in March 2020, basically at the beginning of COVID and halfway through that term, and it had completely flipped. And the reality was the Marshall government was under fire for not having an agenda, for not doing enough, and they'd had a massively damaging campaign over land tax, which was really hobbling them. So, in fact, it was COVID that gave Stephen Marshall the chance to revive his political fortunes. And of course, in the end, it didn't work.
Well, I mean, I think I'd take a different view, particularly to David. I actually don't think this government's been great at all. I think, you know, the ramping crisis has been a disaster. There's been so much money wasted on things like the hydrogen project. We haven't held Labor to account, and that's our fault, because we've been too busy talking to ourselves. But I don't think this is a good government. They have put South Australia on the national stage, but for so many people, pensioners who can't afford their electricity, people who can't get their foot in the door of the home market, a portfolio that I'm very familiar with, which is the Housing Trust. We've got single women in Housing Trust homes who sleep with a baseball bat by their door because the people who are selling drugs next door to them aren't being kicked out. But it's been hard for us to get oxygen because of a whole range of other issues.
Oh, we'll come back.
The voters certainly disagree. The Labor Party is back in, and we're now going to go to Liz Daniels at our big election board to break down some of this data for us.
Yeah, Alice, I want to take you to our big board on the election mega wall, where we looked at the start of the night, and what I want to show you is this is our list of One Nation targets that we identified at the start of the night. So that we had these seats, a couple of Labor seats, the independents where there are messy contests, and then also those blue Liberal seats that One Nation was targeting. All of these were in the bush. I want to show you a second list right now, because this is one that we have not seen, a list that is one of all Labor seats, 12 Labor seats. This is a list of seats where One Nation is currently running second in seats like Elizabeth, safe seats, the seat that you were contesting, black. So we've got a really interesting story playing out where not only is One Nation's vote surging in the bush where we expected it, but in the city as well. Now, if we go back, though, to the One Nation targets, and I might hand it back over to the panel, are there any where One Nation is leading that you'd be willing to have a look at of taking these away?
Liz, Narunga and McKillop, One Nation is currently leading our count in.
Let's flick them over. So what we can do is say One Nation is leading the count in Narunga and McKillop. So we can give those away to One Nation. We then start watching this number tick up here. So One Nation 2, are there any others, Charles, that you'd be willing to give away?
There's a few seats where it is getting close. I think Mawson's one where it's close, and the ALP lead, that's going to get competitive in a few ways as that plays out along.
This is where we had our retiring MP.
Yeah. Mount Gambier is certainly close, and that's another one where there's an independent involved. That's too close to call. Giles is one that is close. You know, there are paths there.
And Finnis.
And Finnis.
I've got results out of Finnis which say that is too close, but the independent's probably ahead.
Yeah, so I think we thought that's Lou Nicholson's seat. So that was she was a popular local. So
and Mount Gambier would be the only one that we'd see potentially as a One Nation gain at the moment.
Yep. So that would give them the 4 we potentially thought at the start of the night. That's a look at the moment at what that would look like, and a couple of those, or at least Mawson, has come from the Labor Party. So the One Nation gains are being made potentially right across the state.
Almost a bit of a teal vibe to tonight, actually.
There is, and the problem that the Liberal Party has found with the Teals is once they are in, they are very hard to get out across the country. There's only been one victory by Tim Wilson in the federal election over Zoe Daniel. Whether they stay as part of One Nation is the other question that probably we have to examine at some stage. There's been a terrible track record, which I know we've spoken about, of One Nation candidates getting elected and then not being a One Nation member 2 years, 3 years, 4 years into the campaign. Pauline Hanson's had terrible luck with keeping people on as part of her team. It might be a new One Nation. Maybe it's a new disciplined team that can keep people around, better vetting, better candidates. We wait and see. But it is so vital now for the Liberal Party that the next election, because we're talking 8 years now, the next election has to be a bounce back, otherwise it's a long time. If not, they go the way of the Adelaide Rams and they're done.
Wow. Good description.
Let's have a look at some more numbers, keep going through them. We'll take a look at Gibson, very marginal seat along the coast there in Adelaide southwest.
Yeah, this is a seat Labor won 4 years ago. It's a seat Labor is continuing to gain in, which is the benefit. As we said at the start of the night, if Labor is holding their vote, happy days for them, they win the election. We've called they win the election because there are seats where they are actually gaining vote. Sarah Andrews gets a sophomore surge for her second time around. That's a good result for her.
And that is Metropolitan Ground Zero for the Algal Bloom. I do want to mention something else. The Liberal Party found it very difficult to attract quality candidates in marginal seats. The seat of Gibson is one of those seats where I don't believe they got a candidate that resonated with the community at all. And that's something that you have to reflect during their difficult season in opposition. Getting good people into candidacies was part of it.
I think we actually had some really good candidates like Gillian Marto and Anna Finizio and Scott Kennedy.
That's correct.
And
there were
others.
some, but there were others that just weren't up to it.
All right, David, let's have a look at what's happening in your seat of black.
Yes.
One you've already conceded, but one where the numbers are starting to come back your way. In fact, you're on the screen there, so you've gone up into third. It's still a happy night for Labor. They're gaining ground. Paula Wilson's get 16.9%. The Liberal vote is now down below 10%. It's into the single figures in that electorate where they got 50% last time, and fifth by a long way.
David, this is positive signs now for you.
Yeah, I'm not going to leap up to 40
you've already
something.
considered the seat.
Yeah.
Would you consider, there is support there for you, in 4 years' time, would you go again?
Question.
That's very early.
Good question.
You're going to put me in the rocket. Can you get back down again?
People have been crushed and come back before. It's happened.
I have been. I'm sitting here, so I have come back to an extent. Look, I think I'll probably get into second there, potentially, as the night and postal votes come in and things like that. Look, I believe this is a respectable result, given some of the challenges that I have faced, and I maintain it. This was a good thing for me to do. Alex Dyson, I should have congratulated him before. He's a good guy, has been a credible local member for the last 18 months or so, and good luck to him going forward.
But still ambiguous on whether you give it another go.
Look, come on. Give me some time.
Maybe. Just give me some.
He hasn't even gone in the rocket yet.
That is a maybe.
Don't the astronauts splash back into the ocean?
There's many other things that I'll be looking to do in the future. I'm actually quite like being here, so I might look at a career in the media.
What about the retiring seat of Josh Gardner?
Yeah, Morialta. Scott Kennedy is a candidate, one of the ones that you identified as a good candidate. Scott Kennedy is copying the same kind of result that the last Liberal we looked at copped, and that's like a 23% swing against. Sort of 1 in 4 voters voted for the Liberal last time and isn't this time. It's a huge chunk of the electorate that is going away. Labor benefits, they get 7%. One Nation benefits, they get 18%. You know, we're looking at a potential Labor pickup there, although the preferences will have to play out. No, with the Greens, that's a seat Labor would be fancying themselves. 22.2% of the vote counted. It's going to be a Labor seat.
That's certainly shaping up like a gain for Labor. And you know, Scott Kennedy was one of those candidates which was pre-selected early, and you know, I think known in the community, CFS volunteer. Had a decent run at it, but I think has been hobbled by what we've seen, particularly in the second half of this term with the leadership changes and all of the fallout that's come with that. So, but a very strong campaign from Matthew Morozzi.
There we have
this is his second run at it.
The preference projection there gives that to Labor, and the tick next to the Labor candidate's name says the computer has got that seat as one of the 17 that Labor have won at the bottom of your screen.
An interesting tidbit here, Matthew Morozzi was actually the best man at Vincent Tarsia's wedding. So Vincent looking like he's going to leave Parliament, Matthew coming in. I wonder if they're exchanging texts.
Chief of Staff or something
in
like
and
that.
out. Yep.
All right, let's go to the seat of Elder in Adelaide's inner south. We know this one was marginal coming in.
Yeah, there's been some political dramas in this one, legal dramas that aren't the usual kind of legal dramas. It hasn't affected Nadia Clancy. She gets that second election surge as well, up 8%. That takes her up to 50.1. She would win that one on primaries, a really healthy result for her. And again, the Liberal Party loses a 12% swing on two-party preferred. Yeah, it's the same story in the city. This has become a very much a Labor city, and I think when this goes on, we're going to have to start looking at some of those seats like Bragg and wondering if the...
We're getting good results out of Bragg.
Okay.
So we're feeling, you know, it's looking positive for us. Also Nadgerry, these are small boos, but we're getting a strong preference flow from One Nation.
We're looking at
least in the small ones, Penny Pratt seems to be ahead.
I'm sorry there. We're looking at the seat of King. That's Rhiannon Pearce. She's gaining votes. She won it marginally last time. She did it with the 43.2% primary vote. Again, the story is the Libs, though. They've lost a lot of primary vote there, and in this One Nation sneaking through the middle, even for a seat in the outer suburbs like King.
Northeast, though, it's, you know, Labor ballpark and One Nation again surging in those blue-collar seats.
All right, let's go to Waite in the inner southern suburbs. Be interesting to see what's happening in this one.
Gallo's seat, of course, he made headlines during the week, didn't he, Gus?
He did. He was well, he was claiming that someone was stealing his cornflakes. We ran that story, and it's not good news for Frank here, is it?
No, it's not. Labor's winning this one on primaries. That's a big surge for them. This was a messy one last time because there were two independents, and Labor won on preferences. At the moment, Labor doesn't need preferences. That's an inner city suburb, and that's reflecting that you're getting roughly 1 in 2 votes. I mean, to win that on primaries.
It's an extraordinary result for Catherine Hutchinson. I mean, she's put an enormous amount of work into that seat, and she's being justly rewarded. It was always a strange choice, I think both for the Liberal Party but also for Frank to run in this seat, and I think this result shows that it wasn't the right decision.
Michelle, how do you reflect on that? Did Frank cause more issues for your party than he made positives?
Well, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I think, on balance. Frank's candidacy probably wasn't helpful because it distracted from the main message. So you just need to have everybody disciplined and on message during that campaign. And yes, he was interesting, he's got a profile, but yeah, I suspected this would always be a bit of an issue.
Well, it became a joke. It became a joke. And Michelle mentioned there were good candidates, and she named Scott Kennedy and Anna Finizio, of course, but there were candidates who detracted from the party's message, agenda, and just didn't have the ability to connect.
Now, Colton, of course, another seat for a retiring member, Matt Cowdery. Matt, thank you for your service, and for all the retiring members, yourself included there, Steve.
A really bad sign for the Liberal Party when a 37-year-old said, I'm not going around again, right? Someone like Matt Cowdery, very talented, and that's what he was seeing, a drop of 27% for the Liberal Party. It's now more than 1 in 4. Aria Bolkus has surged into the lead. She will surge into Parliament. It's a pretty famous last name, Bolkus, isn't it? They've got another one in there.
Aria Bolkus, certainly one that's worked this seat really, really hard, a staffer for Mark Butler, and she said to me tonight, I spoke to her, that she couldn't have worked harder in this seat, and the results are reflecting that.
It was an impeccable campaign.
Sorry, Mark Butler actually can join us now live from Labor headquarters. Mark, you've got the T-shirt there on. We can see.
Very proud.
Yeah, we're really excited about Aria's campaign. She has worked so hard. She was born in this area. She went to school in this area. She was a member of the local Surf Lifesaving Club, got her first job there, and has been a part of this community really for her entire life. She could not have worked harder, and she is going to be an absolute star for the Labor Party here in South Australia. I don't think they've called it yet.
Mark, it's Charles Croucher. I can tell you we've called it. Our computer has given the seat to Aria. You must be so proud.
I'm so proud. We're absolutely proud. I'm also very happy. It was the one Liberal Party enclave in the west of Adelaide, and so now the west of Adelaide is completely red, but this has been a huge endorsement.
Mark,
this has been a huge endorsement for Peter Malinauskas personally, and for a terrific government that he leads. But really the story for tonight is that 1 in 5 South Australian voters moved from the Liberal Party to One Nation. It is an absolutely seismic realignment of Conservative politics here in South Australia that's obviously going to reverberate right through the country.
Now, mate, it's a pretty keen crowd behind you there. They wouldn't be aware that we've called it. So can you turn around and deliver that news to them just so we can get their reaction?
Channel 9 has called Colton for Labor.
Go ahead, Gus.
Mark, Gus McDonald here.
That excited enough for you, Charles?
That was good, mate. I like that.
Aria obviously works for you, or did work for you, Mark. You've given her a lot of time off to be able to campaign. Have you been a bit of a mentor for her during this process?
Yeah, I mean, she obviously comes from such a strong political pedigree with her father, who was a senator for this state for 26 years, a minister in the Hawke government and the Keating government as well. She has lived and breathed politics, but she's very much her own person. She is a real talent. The stakeholders that I know met with her over the time she worked with me, then as a candidate here in Colton, just really love the engagement that she gives to them. She's an active listener. She knows the issues here in the west of Adelaide, but more broadly in South Australia. She's only 30. She's got a huge future ahead of her.
Mark, it's David Spears here. Colton was obviously a seat where the algal bloom was initially quite a concern, quite an issue for the community and presumably for candidates as well. How do you think that played out during the campaign, and did it really actually fizzle away and drop down the agenda as we get closer to the election day?
Yeah, I mean, I live in the area. Aria will now be my local member, so I know the issue very well, as does Aria. And the metropolitan beaches in Adelaide really were pretty free of the algal bloom over the course of the whole of the summer. So it did start to recede as an issue, at least in Adelaide. There are certainly some regional parts of South Australia that are still being hit hard by it. But I think the more you got to talk to people in South Australia, they recognise that under this Malinauskas government, they've got an economy that's doing incredibly well. They've got very low unemployment. The state feels like it's got a buzz about it, and I can tell you that hasn't been the case for much of the last 30 or 35 years. And they just want to see the Malinauskas government keeping on doing what it's been doing.
Well, Mark Butler, congratulations to you and Aria. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy the occasion. We'll, of course, touch base a little bit later on and sort of see how the rest of the team's going. But first of all, Unley, this is the retiring seat of David Pisoni. Let's take a look at these figures.
The Liberal Party came in with a pretty famous South Australian name on their ticket. They've lost that 1 in 5 vote again, down to 28.9. Labor has surged up almost 10%. Alice Rolls will now probably become the member there because the numbers are so good coming from the Greens as well. There is a 9% One Nation vote, but it doesn't explain all the votes that's been lost from the Liberal Party. This is another inner city seat going from Liberal to Labor.
We can actually go live to Alice Rolls in Unley. Alice, how are you going there? A great result for you.
Hello. It's such a wonderful night. We're very, very happy. Obviously, there's still a bit of counting to go, but things are looking really great for us. And we are surrounded here by all my wonderful family.
Alice.
What a wonderful night. I mean, it's the first time in 32 years that we may be able to turn the seat of Unley into a Labor seat. So what an honour and a privilege it is to be able to do that, hopefully.
Well, Alice, I can actually tell you that our computer has called it for you, given it as an ALP gain. So congratulations.
It's yours.
It's yours.
Thank you so much. Well, look, obviously the thanks needs to go to the people of Unley that have, you know, thought to bestow their trust in me, and I'm very grateful for that. You know, but this has been a team effort. No one does this sort of thing on their own, of course. It's been a 9-month slog. In fact, I've been calling it my 4th baby over the last 9 months. But we have all worked very, very hard, and we've knocked on thousands of doors. We have talked to many, many people. I've spent a long time trying to bring a bit of old-fashioned politics back to Unley, you know, helping people. I want people to feel that they can reach out to me, talk to me about their issues, and break down some of the barriers between everyday citizens and institutions of government. So I'm very excited about the opportunity to do that.
And Alice, it'll be a night that those kids around you will never forget.
Oh, I hope so. Well, look, we've got all these gorgeous kids here. Hello. And you know what? One of their, I think I just heard a champagne bottle pop, which is exactly up my alley. Anyway, look, what I would like to say is one of the great things, and I think we need more of, is bringing community together, people of all different ages. And what we see tonight behind me is exactly that. We've got people of all different ages, including the very young to the more senior members. And that's exactly what we need in our communities. And I will always support initiatives that do that if I'm lucky enough to be given the opportunity.
Alice, it's David Spears here. Congratulations. We had 2 dynamic successful women running in this seat. And I think a lot of both you and Rosalie. Do you have a message for Rosalie tonight? Because I know she's someone that you've got respect for.
I have a huge amount of respect for Rosalie. I mean, she has just put 18 months into this, and we've actually spent the last 7 days, the better part of 7 days together. I've just seen how hard she works, talking to people. You know, no one really knows what it's like to be a candidate until you actually get the opportunity to do that. It's really intense. You never stop thinking about it. There's always one more voter. There's always one more problem you can solve. There's always one more person to speak to. So, you know, all respect to Rosalie, and in fact, all of the other 7 candidates here in Unley. Can I just say, David, one of the lovely things about the Unley pre-poll booth this week was there was a really great feeling of democracy. People were respectful to each other. And, you know, we all felt very lucky to be standing there safely, able to talk about ideas and not about, you know, individuals, and more of that, I say. So thank you to all the other candidates for a really great display of democratic institutions here.
Alice, this is obviously the second state seat you've stood for, contesting the Bragg by-election in 2022. I'm interested, is that something you face criticism for when you've been door-knocking this campaign?
You know, it actually has not come up at all. I grew up in the next door neighbouring suburb of Toorak Gardens in the electorate of Bragg. No one's actually mentioned it on the doors. I think people out there understand that communities are much broader than electoral boundaries. You know, we're allowed to live between 2 different electorates that sit literally side by side. I've lived in Highgate for the last 13 years with my family, and very much part of this Unley community, and really hoping to be able to represent it and do it justice. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to do that.
Well, Alice Monfries here. You are my new local member. I'm in the seat of Unley, and congratulations on the gain tonight. Maybe let the people behind you know. I don't think they're aware that we've called it for you while we've been chatting to you. Let them know you're the new member.
It's actually been called for us, guys.
Better get that champagne.
Get the champagne.
Yeah, good on you, Alice. Congratulations. What a moment, hey? What a moment.
Yeah.
Well, certainly, Charles, it's been already a phenomenal night.
It has been a phenomenal night. It's been a phenomenal night for a few reasons. I want to go to the seat of Carville, if we can. Yes. And I do that because you'll notice in the bottom of the screen, our decision desk has given 2 seats to One Nation. This is one of the seats that we currently have One Nation leading in. Now, that is difficult to show out in that 3-party count, so this is one of the ones that will take a long time. The Independent is leading, Labor is second, One Nation is sitting third. There is an assumption that votes will flow from elsewhere and come in to the One Nation vote. So that's going to be a bit messy. 10% of the vote counting. One Nation is currently leading on our projected 2-party preferred. We won't see that because it is so messy, but that's why you're starting to see some of the numbers at the bottom of the screen say One Nation.
Charles, Victoria's the next state election, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong. What does this mean for them with One Nation?
I mean, it would be a lightning bolt to Victoria, particularly to Labor, who've relied on some of those regional seats and some of the outer suburban seats. I think we said last night, voting is not just an intellectual act, right? It's an emotional one.
Sure.
And often when you're in there, you are feeling emotions. The overriding emotions, and has been for a while for One Nation voters, is anger. They've been left behind. And that is so much more prevalent in Victoria than it is here in South Australia. South Australia is not a particularly happy hunting ground for One Nation, and they're delivering this result.
Yes.
This will send seismic shocks through Victoria. I wouldn't be shocked if they got a new Premier next week.
Well, surely the Premier as well. She's in a country seat at Bendigo, Jacinta Allen. This must scare her.
Well, they'd almost lost that seat at the federal level. I don't think she'll be Premier of the election.
I think there will be a lot of people watching this very, very closely. Unfortunately, David, we'll have to get that when we come back. We do need to take a break. There's plenty to talk about. You are watching Election 2026. SA Decides. We'll be back shortly.